Welcome to Music Ed Tech Talk, a podcast exploring music, education, technology, and the intersections between them, with a special focus on the productive and creative process. I'm your host, Robby Burns. Thanks to my sponsor this week, Scale Exercise Play-Along Tracks. Well, Bob, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you. I've been looking forward to having this conversation specifically with you for some time now, but even for a longer time have wanted to just kind of like get the scoop on everything that's going on at your company, specifically the part that you oversee, but also maybe just sort of in the broader context. In music technology news in the past couple of years, the MuseGroup has bought some apps, is like making like very public edits and design changes to Audacity, to MuseScore, which is 4 is on the way. Actually, just the alpha of MuseScore 4 is now.
Yeah, I just had a meeting with Martin Curie this morning and got access to the daily updates for everything, and I'm really excited about what it's going to turn into.
Yeah, I think that just to speak to for a moment, MuseScore, it's not something that I have covered in really, really great detail on the show, but it is like a very, very strongly favored way to compose for music teachers. The nature of its availability and sort of like platform availability, but also like, for being free. And it's just like very appealing to teachers who I think, especially those who still feel a little bit more comfortable like installing something on their computer and not working like within the web. Which of course there's lots of movement in the web happening too. So that's kind of an exciting development with MuseScore. But then also like MuseClass is something that was not really on my radar until it was formally announced alongside some of those other things.
It's been an interesting project from the beginning, and we can maybe get into that a little bit more later if you want. So
sure. Well, I figured maybe we could start with like kind of your. I tend to sometimes I don't want to get to the main kind of point of the topic too late because like I said before we started recording, sometimes I get a little too technical in the weeds too soon in the episode. So let me just flat out say it. We're going to talk, I would say, dominantly today about MuseClass, which do you want to talk a little bit about like your involvement with MuseClass, like what MuseClass is, the mission, maybe a little bit about your story, like what led you to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll just start for those listening. MuseClass is the newest product with the MuseGroup. We officially launched, I believe, in February of 2021, and we're geared towards helping teachers create, distribute, and grade assignments in one place, and to help students be able to complete assignments in one easy location. Our teacher app is all web-based, and our student app is all mobile and app-based. And sort of how all this came along in very quick on my background, I was a public school teacher for 16 years, and eventually at the end of 2018 decided I wanted to stop doing that. And I was also an arranger for marching bands and such like that. And so that became my primary job. And then in 2019, Daniel Ray from the MuseGroup had posted on Facebook about an opening for an engraver, and the person would need to move to Kaliningrad for their new Winds project and everything like that. So I emailed him and said, hey, I'm very interested in this, blah, blah, blah. He had no idea who I was. Got a response because he's up 24 hours a day. Got a response from Daniel. And he said, sure, send me your resume and everything else like that, and then we'll see. So I sent him that a few minutes later, and then a few minutes later I got another response from him. This was on a Thursday, and he said, hey, let's chat. Let's see if we can do like a Google Meet on Friday morning. And I was like, all right, cool. And he said, it'll probably only take 15, 20 minutes. So Friday morning rolls around, and I had to leave for the airport at 9 that morning. Hop on the phone at 7:30, and we talked for an hour and a half. And it started with, hey, how's it going? And he goes, I'm going to tell you right away, we're not going to hire you for this position. That was like the first thing out of his mouth. And he's like, but let's keep on talking. And so we started talking, and he saw based on my background and my experience and my connections in the music education industry, that it could be potentially useful to the company. And so they kind of just sort of created a job for me. So I really lucked out. And then the world shut down not long after that. And then I started to have this job. So I was just very fortunate, very lucky, and just very good timing. And so my initial role with the company was they knew they wanted to get into the world of music education. But they didn't know what to build. And I had a lot of connections across the country through my experience in teaching and drum corps and performing, all kinds of things like that. And so like at Midwest Clinic in 2019, NAM in 2020, TMEA in 2020, before everything shut down, my boss, Jonathan, as well as Daniel said, just bring us people to talk to. And we have a question for them. And we weren't trying to sell anything. We weren't trying to market ourselves. It was just the simple question of what could exist to make your job easier. And so they basically just started taking notes, just asked the question, sat there and let band directors and choir directors and orchestra directors just talk and take notes. And then even in 2020 at TMEA in San Antonio, the majority of the top admin from the MuseGroup, Eugenie, Michael, Sasha, all of them came to San Antonio because they don't really know a whole lot about the U.S. music education system, and they wanted to learn more. And so they were present for all of these meetings. And then finally, between like February and March of 2020, they took all of the data from feedback from hundreds of directors and decided that what we were going to build, which is eventually was MuseClass. And so I've been in it since the very beginning, before we knew what it was, before we knew what it looked like, before we knew it was even going to be called, and all the different things. And so that's a little bit of the background on how we got to where we are today. A lot of interviews, a lot of online surveys from band directors. We've had several rounds of pilot testing from a lot of teachers across the country. And so, yeah, and then we've just been continuing to develop the product into what it is now. That's a little bit of the history on things.
Yeah, that's actually helpful. So MuseClass enters on the scene recently, and after have collecting some of this feedback from people who are, active teachers. The MuseClass is like, it has some of its features overlap with some other like musical offerings out there, but like even more so like learning management software that might not really have musically specific features. What kinds of things were the teachers telling you that they were missing, since we know that all is out there? Now I have some my own opinions about a lot of the software that's out there, but like in terms of like what it actually promises to do, there's some overlap, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, you kind of sort of hit the nail on the head there, where what we realized in all of the feedback is the teacher's like, oh, well, we use this for this. And then so the students record here, and then they have to upload it over here, and then they email us over here, and then they need to check this system for their grade. And what we realized is they like all of the different things that are out there. Of course, everything has little specific parts they may not be a fan of, but they like several different programs. And so what we've actually created is not necessarily anything brand new and innovative. We've just tried to take all of these different things and put them in one place and make it super easy and free. And that, I think, is the huge difference. So the students don't have to record on their phone and then upload to YouTube, and then email the link to their teacher, and then go to Google Classroom to get their feedback. Everything is done within the app for the students. They can record audio, they can record video, they can do their autograde assignments, they can do worksheet assignments, they can get notes for in-person assignments, they can do all of this stuff on the one app, and it's easy and it's free. And that's the biggest thing compared to some of the other companies out there, is they're not free. And yes, they do some of the very same similar things. And I know, like in the past, Daniel on the MuseScore side of things, with MuseScore, we don't want to be the best free music notation software. We want to be the best music notation software that just so happens to be free. And so that's one of the beliefs sort of the company, and same thing with MuseClass now as well.
Yeah, the free belief is like a company-wide belief. And I think that if anyone was thinking to themselves like, well, how are you Like, are you going to eventually like start charging me or something? Like, I think it's core enough to the Muse group.
That's the number one question we get asked, when we're at a trade show or something like that. We're like, well, how is it free? How do you make money?
Right.
And that is the number one question we get asked. And as you know, and maybe some of the listeners as well, the company belief is the fact that technology should be free and content is what people should be paid for. And their creation. So we want to give the tools to people to create content and then also give them the ability to help sell it and make money off of it as well. And so, how do we eventually make money? And is our product always going to be free? Yes, our product is going to be free. Everything that you see now, all the different features, including the auto grade stuff, will be free. The place where we will make money is as we get into the world of digital sheet music. And so that's where, just like any other music distributor out there, they will sell music, and some of them sell PDFs or just online only versions and things like that. And that I think is where we will eventually look to make money. But as far as the actual resources and helping teachers and helping students, all of that stuff is free and will stay free.
All right. That's great to hear. And you're making me think of kind of like a couple of different things at once. So I'm going to, let's see. So you're sort of like, I have maybe a follow-up question about like the content creation part of the process as it relates maybe not so much to sheet music, but maybe to teacher created content. And then I have some sort of ecosystem related questions, but also like, I just want to say as well that you touched on kind of an interesting bit of like specifically web software, and teachers were living in web software as much as I remember back years and years ago where Apple had a very special kind of like an education event where they were really positioning the iPad as like, we're going to turn iBooks into this digital textbook platform, and teachers and educators and authors are going to like use this as this platform for distributing the most innovative and interesting educational material. And for all of that talk, Apple moves famously quite slow these days in education, and does often a little too too little and too late. It turns out that actually mostly due to Chromebooks basically the open standard of the web, and to Chromebooks being so cheap, that actually web apps are really big in education, for better or worse. But that's kind of where we are. And I like to buy my own native software and use powerful, great tools. And, I struggle with my learning management software all the time, and I'm always trying to find ways to sort of bypass it. But I do see that there's, for the time being, like the web software is here to stay for teachers. And so I think like its greatest potential strength is how the little bits, and these are two areas I want to see improvement in the next 10 years for sure. But one is like, I want to see better options that are like truly one-stop shops, kind of like what you're describing for MuseClass. So I want you to have everything in one place. But then on the other side, I also feel like because there's so many fragmented different tools on the web that teachers can't avoid, I'm hoping that we can see more improvements into how things talk to each other in the next, hopefully not 10 years, hopefully like 2.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of feedback. People say, oh, well, do you integrate with learning management systems, whether it's like Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology or eSchool Plus or anything like that? And when we first started this project and we had things set up is, we did integrate with, this is before we kind of went public, we did integrate with Google Classroom, but it was only a one-way integration. And we realized that's not necessarily going to be extremely useful or anything like that. So we sort of have done away with that. But what we've realized that teachers really want is not necessarily integration with a learning management system. They say they want that, and what we often know is like we try to dig a little bit to figure out, is that really what they want? And we've realized no, a lot of the time it's not. What they really want is integration with grading management systems, because there's a difference. Because like school districts, they'll use like Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever, and the teachers they do all their assignments in there, and then they have to transfer all of their grades to like Skyward or something else like that, and that's what's taking up additional time that they're trying to simplify. And so once the grading management systems, as the things the school districts use to send out progress reports and report cards and things like that, once they allow importing of grades or templates into there, that's super easy for us to take the grade book that exists in MuseClass and the template that these grading management systems create, and then just like connect the dots and then generate the template that needs to be uploaded. That's what teachers really seem to want, because that's where it's going to save them time. So that's why we haven't really dug too much into the learning management side of things. But it's a question that does get asked regularly.
Yeah, so our school district where I am, we got Canvas maybe 7 or 6 years ago, and it took until the second quarter of the current school year and this was, I am told that this was in, meetings high up in our technology department. This was a feature they marketed and sold them on, is that Synergy, which is our student management system, which is not to be confused with where like classroom instructional tools and information is organized. That basically that's what like generates the grade book and the report card to send home. Well, Canvas was marketed as like just automatically feeding your grade to that, and then it's taken until the second quarter of this current school year actually for me to not have to press any buttons. I think actually do have to press one green button in Synergy, but basically during the window that grading is due for teachers every day at 6 a.m., whatever is the total score for every kid in Canvas will just go to their Synergy. So that's kind of what you're talking about, is like having basically throwing that data over a wall at the end of the quarter. Yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, very, very interesting. Yeah, I agree that definitely that's where teachers want to save time. I would say though that not every teacher has total control over which of these tools they use, especially
exactly. We've gotten that a lot, especially with people in Canvas, with districts that are in Canvas. That's where we've gotten most of the feedback that is like their administration requires them to do everything through it.
Right, and it can bounce out to other things, but for me, and I'm not sure, it's not a standard that I've ever pushed up against. But I've flirted with it, is like I'm not sure that every single week of the school year that passes, I technically put the number of assignments in my grade book. That is the county policy. I'm not actually even I haven't seen an updated version of it recently enough. I know that in a previous district I worked in, like there were people watching you to make sure that there were at least 2 grades in the grade book for each class every week. And that was, we don't have to get into my feelings on that. But like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like if I create an assignment in some third-party tool, and that's sort of the place where end to end, like the grade, the work, all of that is sort of happening. I feel like my district would want Canvas at the least to know that assignment existed and was graded by some sort of standard, even if all of the actual instruction feedback and recording and the submission was taking place in some third-party tool. Is that like something that you all are working through, or?
Yes, it's a little further out on our current roadmap though. We've got some other things. Like right now, our 2 biggest things are our auto grade features and our content. And those are the 2 big things we're really sort of digging into right now, and hope to have more of that available to users in the future.
Right.
But
well,
we have a long list of things we plan to add over time, though.
Sure. Well, then if those are the 2 focuses, I want to definitely ask you some questions about those. But let me just, I guess I'm wondering, is there a place for someone to say, okay, and maybe this doesn't fit just because of how MuseClass is trying to be the tool for everything. But what if someone really liked just the recording and the automatic grading part of MuseClass, and we're like, hey, what if I my assignment description and information is in Blackboard or something, or Schoology or something, and then you click a button and then it bounces you over to this other tool? Is that something that is not really in the scope or vision, or is that?
It is eventually, but I mean, I would probably say that's a year or 2 out.
Okay.
And specifically with Canvas, that's become the most popular one that we get and how Canvas can shoot you out to the different places like what you're talking about.
Sure.
And that's where I think that is something we want to explore, but it's definitely not at the top of our list right now.
Gotcha.
And it sort of leads on to the next thing on here is the whole idea of single sign-on, because to be able to connect all of those things together, you have to have the exact same information, whether it's student ID or email address, and the format of the student's name, and all of those different things all have to match up. So we have discussed the concept of single sign-on, and I know that some of the other similar programs to us out there do offer that now, and we we do as well. We want to be able to do that as well.
I'm going to explain how I explain these two last things we talked about to like a student or a parent, and I never do unless it's a roadblock for them in like submitting work correctly. But like, tell me if this is a bad explanation. So the way I explain this is like, if anyone has ever like downloaded a new app and it says like, hey, do you want to log in with Google or Apple or Facebook? Basically use that account as your authentication. My understanding is that when one of my students basically goes to their Soundtrap account, we always have to go through Canvas first, where I've provided us a link, and I have to like set it up, so that when they click it, basically Canvas it's got some special sauce that basically says, hey, okay, you're going over to this other tool now, but we don't actually have, you'll see your name on the screen in our app, but we don't actually really have that data really like Canvas has that data, and we're just sort of like throwing a rope over a wall. Is that a good analogy, or should I stop using that?
I get it. I understand it at least, so.
Okay, because it is a challenge. I mean, these technological problems get in students' way where they're like unsure, like, okay, do I go directly to the app to do my work, or do I go to the assignment page, which links me to that? And I'm like, well, depends on how I want you to do the work.
It's like when you're flying on a plane on a code share, like, between Alaska and American. Like, I bought the ticket on American, but I'm flying on Alaska because they're in the same thing. When I go to check in, do I take my bags to Alaska or American? So yeah, it's similar. Yeah.
It's a little messy, but improving certainly. Okay, so you mentioned AutoGrade and the content as being two real big, like a big push of MuseClass. Do you want to talk a little bit about which specific features those include?
Yeah, AutoGrade. There's a handful of other softwares out there that do automatic assessment and stuff, and so that's been one of our big things that we've been digging in on for quite some time now. And what we've realized is, first of all, it's just extremely challenging. And there are so many edge cases, and we're trying to get as many of those covered before we launch this out into the public as possible. And we've already done some pilot testing. We've done demos of this at trade shows and things. And so it's out there and it exists. And we're just continuing to try to get through all of these different edge cases, so that when we do launch, that people are like, yep, I'm sticking with it. And if we don't come out just sort of kicking butt right away with it, it's going to be very difficult to get users to leave any of the other products out there. So we really need to make sure that when we do launch, people can immediately come into us, and A, it's free, B, it's easy, and C, it just works. And because it's such a challenging piece of technology with all these different edge cases on how do you handle this, how do you handle that, and everybody's kind of doing it a little bit differently, and so we're just trying to make sure that we do things that make sense, and again, it just works. On the content side of things, that's where, as a music educator for so many years before I'm doing what I'm doing now, being able to have music that is accessible with this AutoGrade technology, I think is going to be incredibly important, like for concert literature, things like that, or, small ensemble, chamber ensemble literature, things like that. Or even just etudes, for students to be able to practice along with and get automatic feedback about you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong. And there's a number of challenging things that exist with the other AutoGrade platforms out there that we're trying to figure out how to solve, as I'm sure they have been and continue to as well. But yeah, it's some very challenging technology, and it will get somewhere, and then all the thing will be like, oh, but what about this? And we're like, right, let's get back to work. So
today, I would like to introduce you to my scale exercise play along tracks with trap beats, available for sale at robbyburns.com. These trap beat play-alongs include over 72 audio recordings, each of which includes a count-off, a trap beat at 70 beats per minute, and a tuning drone, playing both the tonic and each note of the scale in just intonation, so your ensemble can learn to play in tune, develop steady, sustained tone, and blend with other sounds. These drones are stacked over top engaging trap beats that help students to practice at slower tempos while developing steadiness of time and a better concept of how the beat is subdivided. The scale exercises include whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, scale and thirds, and a mini scale with an arpeggio at the end in all 12 keys. I've also included 3 speed variations of a Remington exercise, so band ensembles can work on their favorite tone and technical exercises, whether they be from a method book or of your own invention. The tracks are $15, but for $40, you can get the stems to the tracks in Logic Pro and GarageBand format, so that you can do things like speed them up and slow them down, change the pitch, add your own accompaniment, take out my voice and add your own,
and 2 and 3 and go,
or even sequence the tracks together to completely automate your ensemble warm-up. These tracks are perfect for running through your Google Meet, Zoom, or virtual teaching platform of choice, or for running through the loudspeakers at the beginning of your in-person rehearsal. Check them out now at robbyburns.com/store. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, some of the tools that are out there sort of are like maybe like first and foremost content libraries that are slowly sort of leaning more towards the direction of the self-assessment and feedback, and then others are maybe more like learning management and self-assessment, and then like, you know, slowly in time sort of building that content library through the user-submitted stuff made in the tool, but also just through developing those relationships. As I see some of these like varying different focuses out there, how do you, I mean, you have MuseScore, which is a way of creating content, and then of course there's, you mentioned like music literature. Like my primary use case for this as a middle school band director would be like, I would want to be able to take concert tunes we're working on and not have to do anything in MuseScore to get it in there. So like what is the content that someone would use with MuseClass? Like what is it, and like how does it get into the system?
Right. So we've been at work meeting with all the different major publishers and everything, and just trying to get access to their content, similar to, again, some of our competitors out there as well, and get access to them. So when they would, sign up for MuseClass, they would be able to go to our catalog and just search for whatever it is, whether it's band music, choral music, orchestral music, chamber ensembles, solos, etudes, individual instrumental technique like scales and thirds and, Clark studies, or, all kinds of different things like that, where teachers could easily assign these different things to their students, and whether they want to do it as a video assignment, an audio assignment, an auto grade assignment, whatever it is, they would have access to that. And then additionally, in this catalog, one of the things on MuseScore is they now have different classes on there where there's actually videos, like tutorial videos and things like that. So, imagining a world where, in our catalog, you could purchase an entire content area on something where you could get instructional videos for your students. You could get worksheets they could do that they can then complete those in the MuseClass app as well, and then do assignments like performance assignments, again, whether it's audio, video, or auto grade, and a teacher could just purchase an entire content area from our catalog and have all of the resources they need. And at the same time, like you said with MuseScore, and going back to the core belief of the company, is other teachers that are currently out there can create their own complete lesson plans and syllabus of everything, and then be able to sell it in our catalog and then make money as well that way. And so it all kind of goes back to some of the core beliefs of the entire MuseGroup company.
Well, you took that exactly where I wanted to go next, because there's like using MuseScore to create sheet music, and then of course there's distributing that, publishing that, but then of course there is lots of really great individual teacher work happening out there where I think things like Teachers Pay Teachers are an example of that. There's plenty of resources being made by teachers that are worthy of some sort of compensation or recognition or distribution. It's interesting to think that like a teacher would have the creative license to say, hey, here's this other like pre-made thing that a teacher from somewhere in a different place in the world has made that I can very creatively use to meet whatever objective I'm working on in my class. Let me just go ahead and buy that through the platform and then integrate it right into my sequence or my assignments.
Yeah, it's similar to like musescore.com. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, like your random little 7-year-old wherever in the world like threw together 8 measures of some kind of something and then put it out for the world to see on musescore.com. Now, obviously, we wouldn't necessarily put that up or anything like that, but hopefully get to the point where we allow people the opportunity to submit things for us to be able to add to our catalog and things like that. And then one thing I wanted to just kind of clarify a little bit, because we talked going earlier on like how do we make money and content and all kinds of things like that, was specifically with AutoGrade, is if you're purchasing copyrighted content, then obviously there's money involved there. Like we have to pay royalties and copyright fees and all kinds of things like that. So it's not like we're giving away things for free. So that's, people are going to have to purchase those things. However, if they create things on their own, then they can use all of our tools and resources for free, including AutoGrade and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to make sure that was very clear in there. And, one of the other things you're talking about on just the creativity side, not only just as musicians and things like that, where in the musical world we have people using MuseClass in ways that we were not originally designed for. We were not originally designed for auditions and things like that, but now we have several places that use them for auditions. Myself, I teach with the Blue Coats Drum and Bugle Corps, and us, as well as several others, including like the Blue Devils, the Academy, Guardians, Genesis, and a couple others, are all using our platforms, not only just for like, brass instruction or anything like that, but we use it for visual instruction, because within our platform, you can, attach, because there's so much dance and choreography in the marching band world now, one of the visual instructors will make a video, put it up on YouTube. The student watches it within the app. Hey, here's this. And then they add a backing track to the assignment for the student. And then the student does visual assignments with a backing track. And all of that's done. We have color guards that use our app as part of the band program or anything like that. So because of the fact all the visual stuff as well. And so we've really tried to, as we see these new uses coming in, we're like, oh yeah, it's totally easy. And so figuring out like how and who to market to and everything like that. So just a couple other nuggets to toss in there.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, how it can be used for these maybe in these creative ways. I mean, anyone who's thinking creatively about like what are the problems they're trying to solve with their technology is going to ultimately find groundbreaking ways to use it, even when it borders on more of a hack than
Right.
it does not. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. So one of the things I really like about the experience of using the site is the design choices that have been made about the entire experience. And this is something that I think about a lot. And it's not something that I think people like. I don't know that the average teacher reflects on it unless it's something that's in their way. But like speaking about Canvas, for example, like, I mean, we joke on my music team that we call it clicks a lot because it takes like 8 or so clicks to do what honestly I feel like should take 1. And you're waiting for an online web browser to load each and every little bit of content, every single one of those clicks. There's no like offline grading or anything. So what are like, obviously like for me to say that I enjoy the design of MuseClass means that I have some sort of taste and that what my taste aligns with what you've chosen to put on the screen and not put on the screen. How did you decide what's the correct amount of things we need to expose to our teachers and students? Where do they go? How do we not put redundant information anywhere? How do we make it look clean and beautiful and inviting? Like what were some of those? Yeah. How were those choices made?
Yeah, one of the things that we've got when we've gotten feedback from users, specifically at trade shows, and we're trying to tell people about the product. People are like, dude, I love it. It seems so easy to use, but it's another thing we have to learn.
Right.
And so that's where the hesitancy is, and especially in the education industry. Like every year it's like, oh, this year we're going to use this, and this year we're going to use this, and the next year we're going to use that. And so what we've tried to do is truly to simplify everything. And when we were doing our initial pilot testing before we ever came out and just trying new designs, one of the comment that we just kept getting over and over and over is it's just so easy. It's just easy. It's just intuitive. Over and over, we kept getting that. And that was by design. And so we were going through, and it's kind of like the concept of less is more. You know, like when you type up an email and then you don't want to send it just yet. And then you go back and you're like, all right, let me take out that word. Let me take out that sentence. Let me take out that, because you don't want to be redundant. And so we've just tried to be very methodical with some of the designers that we've had on the product to date. And, you know, I mentioned a little bit earlier when someone says, oh, I think we want this, and they say that's what they want, but we have to really try to dig in. What exactly is it that they want about that? And is there a better and more efficient way of achieving that? So that's been a constant discussion for us. I mean, literally, we met like every Monday through Friday for like the last couple of years. We have our daily meetings where we talk about this every day. And that has been one of the things, and as other people have seen our product, it's been asked for, please don't add too much to it. So we know there are so many different things that we want to do with the product. However, we don't want to take away from the simplicity of it, where we don't have tutorial videos on how to do all these different things. We don't really have any of that stuff, because we feel that if we needed that, then it's going to take time away from people doing other things, and then they're just not going to want to do it. It's either I look at it and it's just super easy and I get it, or I just don't want to bother learning something else new. So we do have some redesigns that are going to be coming out in the near future, but with all of that being said, we are continuing to try to make everything as useful as possible. I mean, the tiniest little thing, like the way an icon looks, or the location of a drop-down menu, or what options are in a drop-down menu. I mean, we'll sit there and discuss it for hours, going back and forth. Well, what about this? What about that? Well, okay, we do that. Okay, cool. No, but then what about this? And it's just, we just spending a lot of time to keep this as easy as possible. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if I totally answered the question, but it's the design process has been integral, and we talk about it all the time.
I can't agree more, and it makes sense that, you know, coming in where there are already these competitors, that, you know, you do have to, if you get someone to the point where they're going to consider trying it out, it's got to grab them immediately.
Yeah.
And I think there's kind of like I don't know, this might be dramatic and I might get made fun of for saying this, but I feel like there's a courage to like deciding to say like, hey, let's just rip out all the stuff that we think maybe needs to be here. Let's just like cut it all out. Maybe it doesn't need to be here. Make it more simplistic. And like I said, like I just appreciate this and wish that more of the web, because it's a criticism I have of software that's on the web. You know, one of the reasons I don't know, let me just pick a random. Like, one of my kind of like favorite Mac apps this year is called Craft, and they actually do have a web app now, so anyone on any platform can use it. But it's like an extremely powerful and smart note-taking / writing kind of creative. It's basically made for making web documents, things that are not going to be like sent to print or things like this. But it also kind of is like a personal knowledge management app where you can interconnect the different notes and documents you create in it, and it's for all of the it's extremely adaptable. To lots of different kinds of work, and when you think of it in that way, it's very complex. But when you actually look at the buttons, and it's like, wow, anyone can just figure out exactly what to do with this and start typing text into it. So I don't know. That's not been something that's a characteristic of web software, but I appreciate when it is.
Yeah, and there's, you know, I don't want to, I'm not going to drop names of other software programs and things like that out there, but I know with some of the other programs out there, not only just our competitors, but just other apps in the music technology industry, even ones that are extremely popular, that over time they've continued to add more and more and more to it, that the fact there's so many things that it does that you don't even know where anything is anymore because you're limited into the app on the space of a phone. And it's like, oh, well, if I 2/3 of the way up to the screen, if I slide in from the right, I think then this menu pops up. But if I slide in the middle of the screen, then this menu pops up, and all these hidden things and stuff like that. And so we've tried to be really careful to make sure that everything they really need is just easily accessible and obvious. And I know, like, even where our product is right now, we're still new, so we know there's lots of things that need to be figured out and changed and everything like that. And one of the things that we tried to pride ourselves on is that we want feedback. Like, we're begging for feedback, and we love negative feedback because it tells us what to fix, because we want to become the best product out there, period, done, the end. Tell us why we're not good. Tell us the things you don't like. And so we can start digging in to try to figure some of those things out. I know, like, with some of the other people, when, long before I was with the company, I would go to some of the other big companies out there, and I'm like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? What about this? And I would talk to them in person at trade shows, and I'd be like, well, yeah, we're not really interested in that. And they would just say that to my face, and I'm like, okay. Whereas, like, when we're meeting with people, we're just like, to put it bluntly, tell us why we suck. That's what we want to know. Of course, we want reinforcement of what we're doing right, but tell us the things that we're not doing right. We want to know those things.
Yeah, it's important and also difficult and courageous attitude to have, for sure, to just want to pile on the heat. But it's how good things get made.
Yeah. Well, and like I said from the very beginning, with this entire product, it was built. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and the Start With Why. And so we tried to just ask people, what do you want? And then we're going to build it for you. And then we're going to listen to you the entire way after we build it on how to make it even better, as opposed to, hey, we've got this great idea and here's why you need to use it. And that's what a lot of the majority of the companies out there do. That's their approach. They come up with some great idea and try to convince people. Whereas with us, it was like, tell us what you want. We're going to build it for you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because, all good technology is like answering a problem, not looking for one. So,
right.
I support this philosophy fully. So we talked a little bit about like MuseScore and MuseClass. I guess we've also, I hinted at earlier how I think there's like ecosystems or even just like singular software offerings that sort of like are one-stop shops and do everything really well, but with trade-offs, versus like having lots of little bits that each do their individual part well. I mean, MuseGroup is kind of a suite of apps now, and it, in the past couple of years has gotten much bigger. Let me hold on. Let me find your website so I don't miss
mu.se.
So, yeah, great URL there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Ultimate Guitar, Audacity, and Audacity and MuseScore are probably the two that most educators that I know are familiar with. Staffpad, a recent acquisition, and Staffpad is actually David and I are recording on Saturday. It just so happened that
awesome.
These, I'm trying to record everything this week for the rest of the school year so that I have episode content through June. But,
those guys are brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I feel got like a lot of positive feelings about what they're doing in the tablet space. I'm someone who, for the past couple of years, maybe until my attitude changed when we were forced to be online and I was sitting in front of my Mac way more often. But prior to that, I had this attitude of like, okay, my iPad should just give me information. It should be a window into the same content and work that my Mac is. And unfortunately, Apple has introduced some limitations to the operating system that maybe they have not totally like satisfied me in this area, mixed with the fact that lots of people are just not making professional software for mobile, at least not, in the sense of like, like for example, like I don't know if I'll ever see Ableton Live on my iPad. I think there's totally good and reasons for it to be there, but it's just not something. I mean, even Apple themselves, like no Logic Pro, no Final Cut. I know people really want those things. On the Windows sides of things, it's a little different because Windows tablets technically do run Windows, so I can like boot up Pro Tools on one if I really so desired, even if it's not the highest powered machine. So when Staffpad, for example, came out then later it came to the iPad. I thought that this was just such a cool thing because it takes advantage of the power of the iPad and is a professional application, but it also leverages the strengths of the stylus and the mobile computing environment. So, and it's a really great, like, natively coded app that, it feels designed in a way that it feels, even though it uses some different user interface conventions than Apple's apps, it feels like it really belongs on mobile. Similarly, like, clean, intuitive user interface. There's a lot of things about the experience of working in it that I prefer to other kinds of experiences. So then you've got MuseScore, which is also, more like, I think with MuseScore 4, the idea is that it's going to be, you said you wanted it to be the best, so it's going to have a lot introduce a lot of professional features. I guess I'm just trying to see, then you've got like this sort of distribution channel where it's like people can make resources potentially in one of these two score tools that can be easily shared. What I'm trying to get at here is like, is there like a vision or a big picture for how these tools play together in a way that allows them to still serve their singular strengths, but also maybe work together?
Right. Yeah. We've definitely talked about that, and I'm still not very high in the overall company to make any decisions or anything like that. But we have talked about how people can use the different products to create different things, whether it's using Audacity to create backing tracks or click tracks and things like that to then use for an assignment in MuseClass, or using MuseScore to create scale sheets or different technique exercises for students to then do an autograde. And so, going to the single sign-on, we talked a little bit before about the single sign-on within, like, for a student per se, but then, the possibility of like a single sign-on for Muse and being able to access all of the different companies or products within our ecosystem, and having a single sign-on and be able to access into MuseScore and MuseClass and Audacity and Ultimate Guitar and that type of thing. I don't know. I mean, it seems like that may make sense, but the people that get paid a whole lot more than I do get to make those types of decisions. But we are trying to use our resources within the company, specifically like within our autograde technology. That's why we had a meeting with Martin Curie this morning because we do have to use MuseScore on how we're creating all of that. And then we also use our Ecstasy team and playback and all of the different things in there. So we do work with multiple parts of the company. We have people from the Staffpad side of things. There's some technology from that we're incorporating into MuseClass as well. And we just use the resources within the company as well. So it's not always just, hey, there's this other great product that we want to acquire, but hey, there's this great product that we want to acquire that we know we could use that technology for this other part to help develop something new for our company. So
what are are there any other kind of future features or ideas from MuseGroup that you are able to share that would
Probably not. We don't want to give too many ideas to any of the other people out there if they happen to listen to this as well. It is.
That's fair.
I mean, just as we keep an eye on what they're doing, we know for a fact they keep an eye on what we're doing as well. Because I am not a programmer. When I spoke at the very beginning there, when Daniel first saw my resume and my background and my connections and things like that, I'm started out as really the only person on this team that truly had a music education background. And so that's kind of been my role since the very beginning. Is so I sort of like the catch-all kind of guy where I do the marketing, I do the sales, I do tech support, I do ideas, I do product research, I do product testing, I do all these small things, and then there's like the real designers, and then there's the real programmers, and then there's Jonathan, who's my manager, and then I just sort of do all the stuff in the middle. And so, like I said, we do have a long backlog of different ideas, some of which are things that already exist in some of the competitors, and some of the things are things that our users have asked for. And so we do have lots in store. I mean, like I said, we've only been around for a little over a year now. And the things we are talking about, we still got, we have enough to keep us busy for several years, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know, like, with one of the other just sort of general concepts about us is that, Eugenie, our founder of the Muse Group, his vision is to create 1 billion musicians using our product. And, between you can go to the main website at mu.se and see, the number of users between all the different products. And I think it's like a little over 600 million right now when you start adding things up, something like that. And one of the things about getting into the music education world for us is, when it was originally Ultimate Guitar and then MuseScore, a lot of that was geared towards people that were already musicians. And then that's when we're bringing them into our ecosystem. And so what we're trying to do now is let's get these students into our ecosystem at the very beginning of their musical journey. And so that they have these other tools like Audacity and MuseScore and some of the other things that we will eventually be coming out with. And let's keep them there for life. And then that over time, we can sort of expedite this goal of getting to 1 billion, which is crazy to think about, that like 1 out of every 8 people on the face of the planet use one of our products. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah. It's a wild vision, but yes, it's also a huge existing user base too.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I've got, I guess I've sort of made my way down the outline here, almost to the little like segmented sections.
Yeah.
Are there things we didn't cover that whether they are like broader sort of scoping ideas about MuseClass and the Muse Group, or even just like nuts and bolts, like details about how a teacher would learn more, get set up?
Right.
I mean, just anything, you have the floor.
Yeah. It's easy. It's, like I said, we created something that music educators were asking for. And so, we just need people to know we exist, because the market is getting flooded with a bunch of different names and companies. And luckily we have the background of a major company and us just being one of those products. But the music education side of thing is something new. And so that's why we're getting into content. And so the more relationships we can have with publishers, and the more we just need to know people that we exist, and we are free, and we are free forever. This is not just hey, sign up, get it free for a month or 30 days. And that's where we hope that people can, feel like they have the ability, like, I can sign up for free, and if I like it, cool. And if I don't, then whatever, I didn't lose anything. And the concept we talked about earlier, that it should just work right away. And we want things to just be super easy and user-friendly and intuitive. And so, for teachers to be able to just sign up and get their students on board, like we had one of our users said, in the span of 5 minutes, this happened. They went to our website, signed up for an account, created a class, told all the students, this happened in class, told all the students to download the app, all of them create their account, join the class. Then he created an assignment just for the students to say hello and introduce themselves. And then the students did the assignment and submitted the assignment. And all of that happened in the span of 5 minutes. And that doesn't happen with a lot of the other software out there, where a teacher can be like, all right, what is this thing? Let's figure it out. All right, I've got this. I've got the class. My kids are on it. Here's an assignment that I created an assignment for them. And everything was done in 5 minutes. And the kids are like, oh yeah, this is super easy. Like, we have built-in tuners and metronomes on the app, so you're not having to go out and do different things. And we've just really tried to simplify everything, so the students just have one place to go to. All of their feedback they get, that they can communicate with their teachers, sort of like similar like text messages, but it happens within the app. Like I said, you can do backing tracks. The teachers have the ability to do time-stamped comments. One of the things we've really tried to do is simplify the grading screen for the teachers, where they can easily see all the work that they have to do. They can see the music. They can watch the student's video. They can easily excuse or do grades and give all the comments on one easy screen. They don't have to, I got to remember to take my scores home, and then I've got to do this and I've got to do that. It's on one screen for the teachers, with everything they need. And then same thing for students. It's just on the app. And one of the big things that we realized during testing as well, because we geared towards mobile devices, was that we tested in middle schools, and we had some of our middle school pilot test directors like, this is really cool and I'd love to use this, but a lot of my kids don't have cell phones because their parents don't have them for them yet. So you mentioned Chromebooks. So that immediately became something for us. We're like, we've got to get out on Chromebooks. And so we're available on Chromebooks now. And we have like a different design, again, still really well thought out, that is available for Chromebooks and just download from the Google Play Store. And so that's something else. And again, it's just all free. So it's just the simplicity of, for example, like creating an assignment. One of the things we say is create an assignment in under a minute, because it's just one screen. I know some of the other softwares out there, like it's literally 9 or 10 screens you have to go through to create an assignment. And I used to use some of the software and I stopped because it was just so cumbersome to understand. And I was just like, now it's just easy and intuitive, and it's just done on one screen. So we've tried to improve that. And, the biggest thing is like, just go to museclass.com. You can be up and running in under a minute. And if you got feedback, you can either contact support on the website, or within the student app, they can do it. Or once you're logged in on the teacher app as well, it's all in there. Just give us feedback. We want feedback.
Awesome. Side question here. I feel like you kind of answered it, but just to be sure, one of the things I've been enjoying on my new Apple Silicon MacBook Pro is that iOS apps will run natively. Do you all let the MuseClass app run on the Mac?
I don't know. My MacBook Pro is a 2017, so I honestly don't know, and we haven't really talked about that.
The name of the student app is MuseClass, right? Like,
yeah,
no space.
No space. Just it's MuseClass, I think, and then there's a colon. It says student assignments. Okay. And that was one of the things that we originally ran into some issues, and we tried to make it a little more clear, is that the teacher app is web-based and the student app is app-based. And originally we had teachers signing up for the app, like the mobile app, and they're like, I don't understand, it doesn't work. And so we've tried to do different things and added information on all the different screens. And then same thing, we had students going to museclass.com and creating assignments or creating accounts, and we're like, no. And so that is one thing that we've dealt with some issues with, and we've tried to make those issues go away, so it doesn't really happen as often anymore. But one thing that you can't do for people that want to go ahead and test things out is you cannot use the same email address both as a teacher on the web app and a student on the mobile app. So what we encourage teachers, if they want to see what it looks like, use a personal email address on the student app, and then use their school address on the web app.
Awesome. Very cool.
And one of the things, in case teachers are interested, because usually we also ask, like, as far as privacy and everything like that, we follow all of the official things to keep all the districts happy. They can feel free to read all of that stuff. The only information we collect from students is their name, their email address, and their instrument. Like, no phone numbers, no passwords. And a lot of the times we do have schools that the students have a login that looks like an email address, but it's not actually an email address. And so we do have the ability to support that as well. Specifically, we have a number of schools that do that, and they had run into issues where, what happens when a student forgets their password? And so you can fix all of that on the teacher app. You can give the students a temporary password to log back in, because what looks like an email address doesn't actually function as an email address. So we have ways to fix that. We have all types of notifications built in for students, as far as anytime they get grades, comments, when they get a new assignment, reminders, automatic reminders to do their assignment when it's almost due, all kinds of things. So we've just tried to think of all these things that teachers do and like, and just make them not have to do all those things. It just happens automatically. So
Right on. Yeah, thank you for those last little bits were good nuts and bolts that
Yeah.
I think people will want to know. So thanks for throwing those in there. Okay, well, if it's okay with you, I would like to move on to some segmented bits.
Yep.
So I guess we can just go in order. I'll go first with the app of the week. We've been talking a lot about designing things that are intuitive and clean and beautiful and just elegant to use. So I'm gonna say that since if you're listening to this is a podcast. Unless you're like on the blog post associated with it, you're probably using a podcast app of some kind. So I'm going to shout out Overcast, which is my preferred podcast app. It's designed by Marco Arment, the guy who he was like responsible for Instapaper and then previously Tumblr. So he's got a long history of software development, but this is like he's a podcaster, so this is sort of like his design here, and I just think there are lots of podcast apps that offer features that I like that Overcast doesn't, but Overcast has such a easy to use design that I get really, really frustrated every time I try to use another app. And furthermore, it's got, I think, the best audio engine of any of them. So you can add voice boost, and like when you do when you speed up or slow it down, the way that it processes the audio in the app makes the end results so much clearer and more like high quality that you can like actually listen to a podcast at a faster speed without like little artifacts and little blips here and there. It's also got a feature called Smart Speed that will smartly cut the silences out of the conversation. But what I am shouting it out for here today is that they it has a brand new design. As of a couple of weeks ago, and it gets just even better than it already was. And I like it. It's a delight to use on all of my devices because it does run on Apple Silicon, so it runs on the Mac now. And I forget if this is like a premium because it's mostly a free app, but there's like a couple of pretty kind of power user paid premium things. I think one of which is like you can just add your own audio file to it and listen to it as a podcast. So I'll actually sometimes listen to the finished episodes of this show in Overcast before publishing, and
nice.
It's a really good app.
Well, I have to, of course, just say MuseClass because that's sort of why I'm here today. And if that's the app of the week, I encourage you to check it out. Have your students check it out. If you're a teacher out there listening, then create an account at museclass.com and then use a personal email address and download the app for free from the App Store, Google Play, anything like that. Again, we've just really tried to simplify everything for everyone. And yeah, check it out.
Very on brand. I appreciate that. All right, my album pick of the week is going to be Black Radio 3 by Robert Glasper, and I don't know if anyone listen. I assume there are some people listening who don't know who Robert Glasper is. He's a jazz pianist who I wouldn't say that he like sort of like straddles a line between hip hop and jazz. I would say he is like firmly both in all of his work, and he just does a lot of. I feel like he's equally responsible for how much jazz influence there is in modern hip hop, just as much as how much hip hop influence is like bleeding into jazz. I think a few episodes ago I actually mentioned a book, Dilla Time, which is all about like the rhythmic innovations of hip hop producer Jay Dilla. He's sort of like Robert Glasper is amongst the many people who's sort of taken that and sort of applied that drum machine production approach and sampling approach to sort of like live real performance. And so he's an innovator, and the album Black Radio 3 is the third in this series, and it's I would say it's I don't know. I don't think that anyone who makes what's called neo soul music likes that it's called neo soul music, but that's what it is commonly known as. Is just sort of like people like Erykah Badu fall into this category, and it's just so it's a collaboration album. There's just tons of artists who he sing or rap alongside him and his band, and it's just super tastefully done. Has been playing in our house a lot lately. I recommend it. It's really good.
Awesome. Well, I was going to say Milli Vanilli, but I can't say that with a straight face. So one of the albums that I love listening to right now is Via Havana by Joachim Horsley. And he's taken a lot of well-known classical music and just made it Latin. And there's some really cool stuff that he's done. He's got some great videos out, as well as how he just he's a pianist and how he just uses all the possible different sounds that can be created from the piano itself other than just the keys. And so like he's taken some Beethoven stuff. He's got like Shostakovich's Symphony No. 10. He's got Mahler 2 in there. Rimsky-Korsakov, Scheherazade, and just like completely different versions of all of it. And it's just super cool. And I definitely would encourage people to check that out if they haven't heard some of his stuff. He's got some really cool stuff. And like I said, he has videos for them all as well, which are also pretty sweet.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. Well, all of this will, of course, be linked in the show notes to this episode. So I'll do a tech tip of the week here. I think I actually have done this one before, but I like it so much, I'm going to risk it as a repeat. If you are using a Mac, and if you're someone who likes keyboard shortcuts, you like to, like if you want to hit Command and then the letter P to print rather than digging through menus to print. Anything that is in the menu bar of any application can be turned into a keyboard shortcut if it is not already. So, for example, we're in Zoom here, and I'm going up to the meeting menu, and I can mute everyone in this call by holding Control, Command, and M. Actually, Zoom is very, very heavily keyboard shortcutted out here. Here we go. So I'm in the window. Actually, let me use a different app as an example. So I'm going to head on over to...
all of a sudden we get disconnected, so yeah.
Zoom, yeah, right. Zoom is not a fun music app anyway to begin with. So let me find something kind of musical. Like let's say you're in an application like I don't know, like Pages. Like I use Pages to make lots of stuff that hangs out on the bulletin board outside of our room. And one of the things I frequently do is I take something that I've made and I save it as a PDF to my hard drive because I need a portable copy of it that I can send out via email or like put inside of another document on our website. And it's just something I was fiddling around in the menu. I do it all like constantly throughout the day. I was fiddling around the menu. Well, if you go into the system preferences and you go to the keyboard pane, I forget the technical term for this here, and then there's like some options at the top. There's keyboard, text, shortcuts. Well, you're going to choose shortcuts, and then next you select app shortcuts, and then basically what you can do is you can choose an app from your applications folder, and then type in the menu item followed by what series of keys on your keyboard you want to hold down. So basically you can create custom keyboard shortcuts. So like I added Command E in pretty much all of my productivity apps. Will do the command inside of that app to export the current thing I'm looking at as a PDF to my desktop. And I don't know, that saves me a couple seconds, but I do it thousands of times. So right. those seconds add up. So that's my tech tip of the week.
Yeah, for me, one of the things I just sort of figured out over the last year or so on Google Chrome is the ability to group my tabs. So like I keep my, I would probably say I've got 60 to 70 tabs open on Google Chrome at any given time, but I've only got about a dozen different groups, and so I'm able to keep things together. So specifically with all of my work with MuseClass and everything, like I have one tab that just has our staging server and staging desk and everything like that. Then we use Confluence to manage all of our different tasks and everything like that. So I've got one tab with like 15 different Confluence pages open, so I can easily just open and close that. Then another tab for like documents with all our like Google Sheets and Google Docs with notes and all the different things. And then same thing for our production server. Another tab, I've got like 5 different email addresses. So I've got one group that has all 5 of my different Gmails open and I can easily get to all of them. So yeah, for me, being able to create groupings of tabs and I don't know, for all the smart people out there that are far smarter than I am, they're probably like, yeah, dummy, that's been available. But for me, it's a new thing and I love it.
Not me. I've been only using this for the past year or so. Katie Wardrobe came on within the past couple of years, and that was her tech tip. And I have been like dependent on it ever since. Now, actually, Safari for Apple platforms came out with this feature earlier in the year, but for many reasons, I've kind of moved over the course of the online teaching year. I've moved back to Chrome as my main desktop browser, and I prefer the implementation of how they look in Chrome more because they're kind of snuck all the way up at the top of the window rather than sort of like the Apple version does a sidebar on the left side, which takes up a lot of vertical, horizontal screen real estate, which I don't prefer. But yeah, I mean, I've got so many tabs open. One of my favorite teacher examples of how to use this is like just to have a tab called Gradebook and then have all of your different classes like grade, because Canvas clicks a lot. Yeah. To just have the Gradebook tab of each of your classes open as a Chrome tab. I use the word tab twice differently in that sentence, but basically like having that section of your course for each of your courses be its own tab for quick access. And, the first 9 tabs in a row in the upper left are also keyboard shortcuttable. So if you hit Command 1, whatever is your leftmost tab in your web browser will become the focus. And then, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up through 9, right. Actually 0, I think, as well. So that's one way for me. Like I have my first 7 or 8 tabs are all like different class pages inside of Canvas and organized by period. So Command 2 goes to my period 2 class. Command 6 goes to my 6th period class. And that's...
Yeah, it makes it way easier.
It's a good one. Totally way easier. Yeah. I organize sometimes by project too. Like right now I direct our district's middle school honor band, and there's lots of documents that it's just a little faster to have them like right open in a tab rather than to have to go to Google Docs or Dropbox each time. But I also don't need to work on that project every day of the year, so I just have it hidden. And
nice.
Great tip.
Yep.
Well, that brings me to the end of what I had. Anything you want to share, like where people can find you or learn more about MuseClass, MuseGroup? Yeah,
go to museclass.com to learn more about us. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All of them are at MuseClass, and you can learn a little bit more about us there. For me, yeah, they don't really need to know a whole lot about me. If you want to get in touch with me, have any questions about MuseClass, to come direct to me. It's real tricky. It's just bob@museclass.com.
Okay, yeah, that's an easy one. Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. This has been great. It's so good to learn what y'all are doing and the vision and the decisions that go behind it. Have a good one. Take care.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. I'm Robby Burns. Thanks for listening to Music Ed Tech Talk. You can find the show's page, show notes for the episode, and my blog at musicedtechtalk.com. You can subscribe to blog posts through an RSS app of your choice, and you can subscribe to the podcast in the podcast app of your choice. You can now get blog posts delivered right into your email inbox once a week. Please rate and review this show in the podcast app. It absolutely helps. It'll take a second and just a few taps. Word of mouth is helpful too, so please spread the word about it. Learn more about my music and teaching career at robbyburns.com. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube at Robby Burns. Please consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/musicedtechtalk. All support tiers get perks, but even the base tier gets you a monthly video update with an app and music recommendation and some tech tips. Of course, also access to the Music Ed Tech Talk Discord community, where you can chat with other supporters and guests of the show about music, apps, pedagogy, lesson ideas, tech support, and more. It's a fun place to be, and I hope to connect with you soon. Thanks to this week's sponsor, Scale Exercise Play Along Tracks. Be sure to check it out, and see you next time.